He got me at the Cheesecake Factory, y'all. I ain't getting out this car. This is the Cheesecake Factory, y'all.
What's the problem with that?
This is a chain restaurant. Who takes someone that looks like this to a chain restaurant?
If you Google Passport Bros, you'll see a variety of pictures and YouTube thumbnails that represented how hot the topic was all of a year ago. Now that things have died down a bit, guys who are intent on pursuing new ways of life, from mating and dating to starting new lives, have had the opportunity to refocus on things besides the endorsement and protecting the name of Passport Bros, or at least as much as before. That said, as I've had the opportunity to live overseas for quite some time, I realize that many of the problems that Passport Bros are thinking and talking about are front-end issues. How can I find a girl? Where can I find a girl? Where's the best place to start a new life? Today, I want to talk about some of the back-end issues, and one back-end issue particularly keeps me awake at night. The problem? How do you deal with life when you end up with one of these?
So you expect a man to go all out on the first date, is that right?
I mean, you're supposed to. Look at, when you take out a beautiful woman and you're courting her, you're supposed to take care of her. You're supposed to cover her. You're supposed to protect her, cherish her, treat her well.
For Passport Bros, the first 2 or 3 years are probably going to be some of the most exciting times of your lives. Maybe you're going back and forth and doing it periodically, or you're expatriating, and that first couple of years is going to be all different. You're going to go to parties and beaches and clubs. I can remember one club that I used to frequent many years ago called the Happy Cock. That was literally the name of the club, and people just had a good time in there. We'll put it that way. And many people had some of the times of their lives in clubs like that. But one thing happens, of course, is you can't party like that forever. You're going to start settling down with someone. But when you settle down, there are a couple of things you're going to have to think about. And one is, once you build your house, you're going to have to start building the fences around the house. And I'm going to give you an example of the kind of fences you're going to need to build.
What did I do that wasn't cooperative?
Well, I mean, even when we were walking to the car, you wouldn't put your hand around my arm.
A troubling truth that many Passport Bros are going to have to come to terms with is that once you start a permanent situation with a young woman and you tie the knot and you decide to start having children, each of those children have a 50% chance of being girls. And as young girls, they're going to immediately take after the role models in their immediate vicinity, like their mom, their aunts, their grandmothers, and people around them. But once they start consuming media, and they will consume not just media, but Western media, because it's ubiquitous, they're going to start finding new role models to look after. And so I think that, and this is where the gatekeeping comes in, or the fence building, if you will. I think Lakeisha is an absolutely stunningly beautiful woman. And I think that she's kind of like beautiful cute. She's not the kind of woman that you see and it's like, oh, she's super duper sexy. That's not the way I look at her. She's the kind of woman that is worthy of being courted. She's the type of woman that you marry her and you're going to have photos that are going to make everyone envious of you because you have a stunning woman on your arm. That said, because she works in Hollywood, Hollywood does things where they take that woman and makes her look like this, where she's wearing some kind of breastplate or something. I think this is the Tony Awards or something like that, with this tattoo on her head. And then she does this frontal kind of suit look. And it's not very feminine or dainty. And so if you have a young girl that likes Black Panther and she says, oh, I like her because even though she's darker than me, she's beautiful, so I know that I'm beautiful. And then she does this is throwing a monkey wrench into the mind of your young girl about how to be feminine. And so you're going to have to think about the kind of fences you're going to build around your children in terms of the type of Western media, specifically from women, that you're going to let her consume.
What did I do that wasn't cooperative?
Well, I mean, when we were walking to the car, you wouldn't put your hand around my arm or anything like that, or hold my hand or anything like like that.
I mean, it's too early for that.
As a man, it seems to me that raising boys is more of a linear cause and effect type dynamic where you essentially tell your boys, if you don't work hard, your chance of success is going to be lessened. Or if you're not a person you're proud of behind closed doors, sooner or later you're going to do something in public that's going to be embarrassing. And so young boys can take that dynamic because as men, we live in a kind of a yes, no, black and white type of dichotomy where if you get the job done, you get praised. And if you don't get the job done, there's no excuses. When it comes to raising girls, of course, the father is going to have a very strong influence. But I think for girls, they're more raised by the environment than just the father alone. And so if you're raising a young girl in an environment that shows her to appreciate women that are modest or to be an appreciative woman, then she's going to see those traits as something that a woman should do. And that's one of the beauties of raising your children in a society that's more gracious or a society that has more traditional values, is that they're going to start seeing beauty or piety or goodness in things that don't have a monetary value.
I mean, I feel like I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do as a woman.
But
I got myself all made
There's
up.
nothing wrong with the Cheesecake Factory, right?
Yes, there's a lot wrong with the Cheesecake Factory.
Unfortunately, in the West, and it's very prominent in the Black community, is the idea that femininity is equal to sexuality. And so you're hearing in the TikTok the woman saying, why would you take me to the Cheesecake Factory? I'm all of this sexiness and I deserve to be courted like a lady. And her idea of being a lady is being sexy. And unfortunately for her, she's just never really been in an environment where being feminine is being gracious, being soft, being dainty, being giggly, being any of these things that unfortunately Hollywood just doesn't show young Black girls as. And unfortunately, in such situations, when she wants to be treated like a lady, she thinks being a lady is being overly sexual. And if I'm overly sexual and stimulating, then this is my ticket to being courted.
Okay, well, look at my planner where we were gonna go originally.
See, now that's where we should have went. All right there. Call him.
No.
Teaching a young girl to not just be a taker, but to be a giver as well as receiving is something I think is extremely difficult and getting more difficult by the day to teach young girls in the West, because media tells young girls to be receivers, that men owe you. And so if that is your way of looking at situations going into dating, it's going to be very difficult for a man to see you and want to do for you just because you're a woman. However, if you have learned from your environment and from your immediate family household that if you're modest and you appreciate and being feminine, it's not about putting on very skimpy clothes and showing people as much of your body as possible, then you're going to find a guy that's going to want to court you. And that's something I think women really have a difficult time understanding until it gets too late and they want to be courted, but men don't court women that unfortunately have the characteristics of a woman with a high body count.
I specifically told you both yesterday and this morning that I'd come to pick you up at 4 p.m. Right? And I got to your place at 4 p.m. You didn't even come downstairs for another hour.
What's it like being half Black in Japan?
Well, for me, it depends on what area I am in. Sometimes I'll be in Tokyo, and if I'm around a lot of young people, sometimes I'll get small comments like, gaijin toka kokuchin, そのこと. And it does bother me a little, but other times I can be still in Tokyo or somewhere, but around older people, which is quite different. And they'll be nice, 美しい, bijin toka. It just depends on the person, I feel like now.
The young lady being interviewed in this clip, I think she's a high school student, but she's a harafu, which means she's part Japanese or half Japanese and half foreigner. And you can immediately tell from her mannerisms, from her tone of voice, the way she's carrying herself, she was not raised in the States. She was socialized somewhere else. And as passport bros, if you have daughters, she's going to be some iteration like her, where she has the look of Americans and she's going to have brown skin, but she's going to have a different culture to her. Now, the rub.
In America, when you say you're half Japanese, how do they react?
They'll say my mannerisms are very Japanese, but I feel like I look 100% American. So they'll be like, oh, you're half Japanese. Do you speak Japanese, Chinese, etc.? Like they put Asia in one category, and that's something that does bother me. I feel like my personality is both depending on where I'm at. In Japan, I can be a mix of both, but in America, I feel like I'm more Japanese because I don't relate to a lot of the things that people my age are doing in America.
I'm thinking, okay, if we're not there in the relationship to, meet at your apartment, then maybe we're not ready in a relationship for such a nice fancy restaurant as Aria. Especially if I'm paying for the whole thing. I'm waiting for a reservation.
We can still get to know each other. Isn't there another restaurant you can call that,
No.
equivalent to that? I mean,
I literally
you don't
just said,
understand. Look at me. I cannot go in the Cheesecake Factory.
there's nothing wrong with
I
that.
will die. That's
Okay.
embarrassing.
Remember when this young girl said this?
But in America, I feel like I'm more Japanese because I don't relate to a lot of the things that people my age are doing in America.
Imagine being a young black girl that's coming to America to understand the second half of her culture, and every image of blackness that she's seeing that's feminine looks like this on television and is being mimicked like this in her school, in her community. It's confusing her because she's not seeing any of the portrayals of soft femininity that she saw in Japan. And so she says that she's seeing behavior that she can't really understand and she can't partake in because the hypersexualized young girl behavior is filtering all the way down to her classmates. And when I talk about building the fences, when your young kid builds their community network, there might be a kid in that class that comes up to them and says, "Hey, I saw some girl on the internet named Sexy Red. Do you know her? Do you like her music? Is that what your parents like?" And she's going to be stumped.
Listen, as I said, I have very specific certain expectations for that.
No.
I can tell it's not gonna be there. And maybe we're not right for each other. So respectfully, I'm gonna just drop you off at home.
Oh, no, he didn't.
When I talk about the things that keep me up late at night, I think about my future daughter walking up to me and saying, "Hey, Dad, one of the kids at school said I look like Skihana. Who is she?" Or better yet, she goes back home to her cousins or her relatives and they're singing songs that are from Glorilla. And she's listening to the lyrics and saying, "Is this a representation of my black femininity?" And for that programming is going to clash with the programming that she gets from where she is. And the problem is, how do you gatekeep that? I think that that's one of the looming problems, if not maybe the looming problem, because for most guys that are passport bros, if you start having kids, you want to see them have healthy families. And America's just not doing that very well. And that culture of hypersexuality equals somebody is supposed to court me, it doesn't work. It doesn't fit. You have women essentially that no one wants to court and everyone wants to just have fun with. And to have your children get sucked into that culture is just heartbreaking. Passport bros really need to start thinking about the kind of fences and gates they're going to keep around the culture of their houses so that they can prevent some of this cultural stuff that we don't want in our house getting in. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment below. I'll catch you in the next video. Take care, guys.